What's up, ladies and gents? Social Nurse here. Thank you for stopping by the channel. And I just finished watching a YouTube video before I stepped out to drive to the car place that I'm going to on NBC Chicago. And the video is titled Chicago Migrants Holding Community Meeting at Brighton Park over proposed migrant base camp. So, really interesting video because this meeting was held where citizens that live in this area where this camp is going to be, right? The contract has been signed, it's going to take place. These people weren't consulted before this area of Chicago made this contract and okayed this contract for these immigrants that are seeking asylum to be camped in this location. And the title is very interesting because most of the people that stood up and spoke said that they themselves were immigrants to America. Many of them had thick accents. Some of them even needed an interpreter to interpret what they were saying, what they were expressing, right? To communicate to the facilitator of this meeting what they were saying, right? People were speaking Chinese, and I recognize Chinese for sure, but people were speaking other Asian languages. There were thick accents. These people admitted to being immigrants themselves, right? And what this meeting proved is that not all immigrants, once they are comfortable in their new home, are as liberal as many of us would think when it comes to immigration, right? These people were against this camp. They are against these people that are seeking asylum being placed in their neighborhood. It's really interesting to me because I had not thought about this in this way. That there would be actual immigrants admitting to being immigrants and that they are opposed to these other immigrants, which there are a lot of them, especially from Venezuela, which is a really place that's not stable at all, right? That country is very rocky and shaky at this point. But I definitely understand where these people are coming from, but I'm not an immigrant. My family has been in America for a very long time, right? Probably over 400 years or something like that. My family descends from slavery, the African people that were brought over here, right? And it's really interesting because I know that a lot of Americans that do not consider themselves immigrants or whose families have been here for hundreds of years, right? Kind of are opposed to this, right? People have questions. Just like these immigrants who stood up, they were concerned with safety. They were concerned with the background and the criminal history of some of these immigrants, right? Some of these people that are seeking asylum. They voiced concern with, well, how is this being paid for? Where's the money coming from? Some of them even stood up and said that when they came over, they did not get free anything, right? They said, I had to work hard. I wasn't getting free food, clothes, shelter, and health care, right? Very interesting for me to hear these immigrants talk this way because I did not really think that these people would be the crowd voicing their distaste for what's happening. But when you think about it, I think that it hits one even harder when it's right in your community, right? And you have to wonder that if, you know, the people that advocate for sanctuary cities, because this was mentioned by some of these people that stood up and talked, if the people that advocate for sanctuary cities even live in these so-called sanctuary cities. Because I tell you, most of these people that stood up and spoke were against these immigrants coming into their city. They were against it. And there were a couple of people who stood up and were like, I'm an immigrant too, and I'm for this. I think we should look at the human quality in everyone. And one woman stood up admitting that at one point she was an undocumented immigrant, and that, the way that these people are being treated could affect others. It was just really interesting. I'll put it this way. There are a lot of people here in America, right, that really need assistance, right? People that are just hard on their luck. They've had just bad things happen where maybe they become injured and they are unable to work, right? Maybe there are people that just don't have sufficient health care, right? And this Affordable Care Act, Obamacare thing doesn't quite work out for them, right? There are people here in America that are homeless, right? You've got people that are not eating properly as far as food deserts. There are people in rural areas in America that need help, right? There are a lot of people in America that are homeless, that don't want to be homeless, right? They're not just some person out there struggling, choosing to be homeless. So there are a lot of issues in this country, and, a lot of what these immigrants said, a lot of United States citizens that have never been immigrant, that are just United States citizens by birth, right? By birth, and their families have been here for several hundreds of years, right? Since kind of like the establishment of this country, right? Since the 13 colonies, if you will, right? Or some of us whose families were brought over here through the slave trade, right? It's just a very interesting situation. Again, a lot of times people who advocate for these sanctuary cities don't even live in areas that are the sanctuary cities, right? And I just find it really interesting that these immigrants, people that said that they were actually immigrants to this country, are totally against these people that are seeking asylum. Social.